Welcome to the MADEcast, a series about interactive media as part of the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment's ongoing efforts to preserve games history. For the past few years, your support has allowed us to produce lectures and interviews like the one you'll hear in a few minutes. We've got a very special episode this week. We'll be talking with John Romero, a pioneering game designer and one of the creators of the original Doom, which is a few days from celebrating its 30th anniversary. We get into some of the game's history, the tools that helped build it, and some of Romero's more recent projects. Hope you enjoy it. So welcome to the MADEcast for the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment. Today we are joined by legendary game person John Romero, whose credits include Wolfenstein, Doom, Quake, and has continued releasing projects through his and his wife's studio, Romero Games, who are about to release, if I'm not mistaken, Sigil 2, which is on the upcoming 30th anniversary of the Doom's release. And John, welcome to the MADEcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So first off, you've got a release coming up. Could you tell me about Sigil 2?
Yeah, Sigil 1 was the 25th anniversary of Doom's celebration for me. I wanted to do more than just tweet happy birthday to Doom, like I do every year. Happy 25th birthday. To me, it seemed like, well, that's a big number. And so I thought for Doom's 30th, that's also a pretty big number. I was like, why don't I make another set of levels? I'm kind of warmed up,
Yeah.
Why don't I make a 6th episode? Because the number 6 fits pretty well with Doom. So I thought, why not? And so I started working on it, the beginning of the year. Like, I'm going to do a 30th anniversary release. And so that's what I've been working on. And I got, last time there was, the music was by Buckethead. Buckethead made a special song just for Sigil. And all the rest of the music I chose from his incredible amount of albums. Like, he has 600, 700 albums. So I picked really great stuff, and it was really great to it basically introduce a lot of people to Buckethead who hadn't heard of him and could appreciate that kind of music. And then with Sigil 2, I had a lot of design goals with Sigil 1, and with Sigil 2 it was like raise the stakes on design goals. So basically every level in this 9-level set has checklists of making sure that it is more than what Sigil 1 was, and the cover art is just unbelievable. Same artist who did the cover art for Sigil 1, both the Beast Box and the Big Box, has returned to do Sigil 2's cover, which is just like the most metal cover I've ever seen. It's incredible.
I saw it. It is pretty cool. And just for the listeners' sake, Sigil is what essentially amounts to a mod of Doom, and you've been releasing these as like unofficial sequels, and this is the 6th one total.
Yeah.
And when you say that you challenge yourself with these 9 levels, can you talk to me about kind of what that checklist was, and like for you, what does a game design challenge look like?
Well, the fun thing with Sigil 1 had so many, it was a harder task, because coming back to Doom after 25 years, it's like, okay, how can I try to do something new and consistent with 9 solid levels that people haven't seen in the original Doom? And can I do something in design that I haven't seen before? And I was able to do that, which was pretty cool. Um, and so with Sigil 2, like, the difficulty for Sigil 1 was the level from a pistol start. They have to be very difficult for me to finish. Like, I probably have to try and play it over and over again. With Sigil 2, I raised the stakes on difficulty, and basically I can't finish a level if I'm not saving and reloading.
Nice.
So they're totally doable with a pistol start, but I have to save and reload to actually finish the level, because these things, they're adventures. Like, some of them are really long, and even the first level is the longest, biggest first level I've ever made, in anything. So it is a big first level that has so much stuff going on. And it's all just because I'm just warmed up on on Doom level design, and just a lot of Like I'm always trying to make stuff that I haven't done before. When I'm making something, it's like what have I not done before while I'm making this? What
Yeah.
concept am I coming? Can I come up with a concept of progression or of unlocking or just like the way things look in the screen, but like also engaging the enemies, and how do I wake them up, and how do I put things in this level that have not been done
Mm.
much before in Doom levels. And one of the things with Sigil 1, I combined a shootable trigger, of which there are only 3 types in the original Doom, and they only do 3 specific things. It's just like open a door and make the floor go to the ceiling, and there's another one. And so they're very limited what you can do with a shootable trigger in Doom 1. So my design idea with Sigil 1 was take the shootable trigger that was not used much. Take the sprite that also was used maybe 2 times in all of Doom, which is the Evil Eye. It's called Evil Eye, and I call it a Baphomet's Eye. And basically, if you shoot the eye, a wall closes it up, showing that it's completed, and that shooting of the eye will either open up a secret or it will progress the player forward.
Mm.
And so that design consistency is through all of Sigil's levels. And the first level of Sigil 1 has like 5 of those eyes. And I'm training the player to look for them. And they start getting harder and harder to spot as you go through that first level. And then you're kind of trained. I'm going to look for the hidden eye, basically.
Mm.
Um, so with Sigil 2, I use the same thing, the same idea of this eye, and you shoot it and you progress, or a secret is revealed, something like that.
Hmm.
And that was based off of 2 parts of Doom that were very seldomly used. And so I decided to add one more very seldomly used part of Doom, and that is the 30-second door. And what that means is when a level starts in Doom, you can make a door close 30 seconds after the level has started, which means I have a cool secret
Mm.
room with all kinds of stuff in it. But if 30 seconds goes by, that door closes forever. Right. And so you miss out on that stuff. And of course, I put the door somewhere where you're having to fight through all kinds of stuff to even get to the door. So you might not make it in 30 seconds, you know?
It almost sounds like you have these kind of like leftover blunt tools, and you're just finding new ways to like sharpen them and use them. And that's really fascinating that you just kind of have this like soup of all these different things, and you're like, okay, how can we make this interesting?
Yeah. And I did. And with the first 30-second door on level 1, I came up with so in Sigil 1, there are cyber demons on every level if you're an ultra violent, right? And the way that I got the player to kill the cyber demons in Sigil 1 was with telefrags. So part of the physics of the physical world of Doom is that if you teleport into another body, it just gets destroyed no matter how big it is. And I use that same idea in Quake to finish off the final boss of Quake. You teleport into the boss of Quake and you destroy it, right? So the telefragging is cool, but for Sigil 2 to make it even harder, these cyber demons are not telefraggable. You have to kill them, right? And so on level 1, you have to be able to kill. If you want 100% the level, you have to kill the cyber demon, and you have to figure out how to do it. and and it is a little bit unique. And and so
I'd imagine that the people who are going to play Sigil 2 are the kind of people who want 100% the level. So,
yeah. Oh, and guess what? So 100%ing the level is not just the cyber demon. I've created a new secret, and it's this one type of secret that's on every Sigil level, and it
okay.
and it takes advantage of a funny meme in the Doom community, which is the fire blue meme. And
Okay.
fire blue is the name of a texture that is not really very good. It is a red pixel and a blue pixel, and it's just a mess of them, and it looks
I
like
know
crap,
I
right?
know
You know,
exactly what it is. Yeah.
okay, so the fire blue pixel wall is a joke, but in Sigil 2, there's one fire blue room. The ceiling and the floor, one's blue, one's red. The walls are all fire blue. The room is marked as secret. It has a single idiot wimpy enemy in it, and it has items in it, which means if you can't find that room, you can't 100% the level in secrets, kills, or
Oh.
items. And
That's
you need to
evil.
find the fire blue room. And the way that you find
Love
the
it.
fire blue room is to find the fire blue hidden texture on the level and shoot it. And when
Okay,
you shoot
sure.
that texture, you open up the secret door, usually near where you're at. But it's also like that's another thing that's a design consistency through every one of Sigil 2's levels is find the fire blue secret or you will not 100% that level.
This just went from like interview to strategy guide.
Yeah, basically.
So zooming out a little bit, I heard you say in another interview that you have to keep making games, which I thought was something that on some level I relate to, and I understand that I think a lot of people feel that need to really express themselves through art, whether it's painting or film or whatever. What is it about games in particular that you're so passionate, and why do you need to keep making games, even though obviously you have like a 30+ year career that's been very successful? What is it about games that makes you have to keep making them?
I think it's just the amount of creativity that games offer. If you're drawing, there's a crazy amount of artistry that you can put down on paper, or even digitally in Photoshop. Like anything that you can think of, if you can come up with an amazing image, you can put that into a painting or a drawing or whatever. But that's what that is. But imagine doing that inside of a game where you have a ton of those opportunities to make a lot of different images that are meaningful or interesting, but also within the context of a world or a story or just an experience. And it's kind of up to whatever you want to make. I mean, genres and new genres are born, in the game industry kind of often.
Yeah,
Um, Genres are progressed beyond where they were in the past, and sometimes splinter into subgenres. Um, so there's just so many ways. There's so many opportunities to just like create a new thing that no one has seen before. And if you want to be excited about game design, just go play indie games. They
yep,
explore so many unique ideas, and it gives you as a designer just this perspective of like I do boring stuff. Like my stuff
yeah,
is boring compared to this really cool stuff that these indies are doing. Why am I stuck in this creativity box that I put myself in? Why can't I break out of that box and do something brand new? And that is the idea. Like that's the thing that can like drives me is to be
yeah.
able to experiment like that sometime and make something else new that I didn't even think that I could make. Like
I,
that's there's just it's like a guitar player. A guitar player can do so much on the guitar, but they have their box that they're creating through their career that they live in. And to get out of that box, you listen to other guitarists that do stuff that you don't do at all, but it's
yeah,
like to get out of that box is who you are. And to like get out of that box is difficult, and it requires, a lot of effort to get out of there into something really brand new, which might open a lot of creative horizons. So the idea that exists is a driver to keep
the
on going, right? To like
kind
there
of
is
the unexplored frontier.
exactly there's this
Yeah,
personal unexplored frontiers out there that I could get into, and I'm excited about doing that at some point. You know, it's like that's why I love making games is because it's just pure creativity. It's pure ideas turned into reality.
yeah,
um, and it's just like the most music, the sound effects, the visuals, the effects, the movement, the what it's doing to the player, the emotions that you can get out of somebody. All of that stuff is, you can do that in movies, but you can do it even more so in a game.
yeah,
And then you can react. Like in a movie, you don't really react except for a jump scare, but in a game, you react in the world to get out of the situation, or you react to the situation. And it's just like that craziness of creativity is
yeah.
just something I love.
Well, it's a multi-pronged thing, right? Because you can have like creativity in writing and creativity in storytelling, but then in games you can also have creativity of mechanics, and you can have creativity of input, and you can have these things that people have never not just seen before, but never experienced before.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a really beautiful thing. Um, all right. So one of the reasons that we've been talking mostly via email with the museum, is because of our archival work, and specifically in regards to Doom and its relationship to Next Step, which is an operating system. If people have seen any of the Steve Jobs documentaries where he splits off, he gets laid off and he goes like, "I'm going to start my own company." Anyway, Next Step was a computing company that made these really high end workstations for professionals, and a lot of the early Doom tools were built on that. And even from what I understand, an early version of Doom ran on Next Step before it targeted MS DOS. Can you kind of tell me about those early tools and versions and like where that came from?
Yeah. So we used to develop games for DOS using DOS, like Wolfenstein and Commander Keen and all the other games. Like in 1991, we made 13 different games, and it's like that's a lot of that's
It's
a lot of
crazy.
DOS. It is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
My autobiography goes into detail on every single thing that happened in 1991. But the thing about Doom was that John Carmack got excited about this Next Computer. That was the name of the company, was Next Computer Inc.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very excited about this new workstation because it wasn't the hardware, it was the software, it was the operating system that looked like it was just light years ahead of DOS. So, um, so that's what we wanted to use like for the next game. And this was in Christmas of 91. So we were using it in 92 just to do some page layout and everything, kind of get used to like, what does this workstation do? We decided to get workstations for everybody that was making Doom. And at that time, there were only 5 of us. So there were 5 Next Step machines plus another one that turned into like the grabber for all the rotoscoping that we were doing for the enemies and the weapons and stuff. But we decided to do everything different with Doom. So we changed our development platform 100% to Next Computer with Next Step 3.3. We also had a DOS machine next to us. And so that DOS machine was basically just to run the game. And Doom was 100% created on Next Step from beginning to end.
Hmm.
We made Doom 2 on it. We made Quake on it. Heretic and Hexen were made on it. Strife was made on it. All these games were using the Doom, technology ecosystem, which only existed on Next Step. We had nothing on DOS.
Hmm.
DOS just ran the game. So we would cross compile the executable. We would make an exe on Next Step, even though it uses .apps, right? Because Next Step is really Mac OS today.
Yeah.
Um, so we would make like fat binaries of .apps even, and that would run on the 4 different architectures that we had in the office. So we had PA Spark and we had Intel's Motorola 68K, and there's one other chip, PowerPC or something. So we had all of those architectures as boxes in our office, and we would compile fat binaries, and it would run on every single one of them exactly the same. So it was really really cool doing this cross development work and being able to do things like do video captures of characters like physical creatures, and that like shortcutted so much work for all the animations, the rotations of them and everything that we were doing. It just made things much faster, and so we were just doing so many new things during the development of Doom, that that workstation was pretty critical to being able to surmount the obstacles that we were hitting with, like creating the BSP trees, making
Yeah.
the rendering fast, all of that stuff. It was the amount of data that we were creating a game that was 4 megabytes at that time, needing to use a DOS extender to even load stuff. So it was like we were at a turning point with Doom.
I don't think I realized that it was that ingrained in the process. For some reason, I thought that it was just like early on in the process, and then you switched over to DOS afterwards. But as a former iOS developer, I have typed the letters NS more times than I can count,
There you go. And it's
which
still
stands
in
for
there.
Next Step. And so that legacy went on for decades, actually,
Yeah.
and is kind of the early foundations of what eventually became Mac OS and iOS and all those. But can you tell me about some of the specific tools that were used, specifically the level designer, and kind of what that workflow was like in terms of getting from, from like an ASCII text file to a level in the game?
So we had no ASCII text files. So it was great. I wrote a next step app called Doom Ed for Doom Editor, and it was very similar to, say, Doom Builder 2 or Ultimate Doom Builder on DOS right now, or on Windows. If you download that for free, you can just do a Google on those things, and those tools, when they load up, they look basically close to what I made for Doom Ed. But you've seen Doom Ed, right? So you know what
Yeah.
it looks like. And so modern Doom editors look pretty similar to that, except that now you can actually see the little like icons and characters, on the things. So basically, it's just me and Tom Hall at the beginning, and then when Tom left, then it was Sandy Peterson, but it's just two of us level designers, and we would be in the tool and we would draw, say, a room and place a character in it, and I click the BSP button up there, and then it launches a process. This is next step, so it just launches a process, an external process like an exec, and it saves the file. The map file is in a text format, so it's a good source format that's readable. And so this BSP program would take that and turn it into actual data, and then create the BSP tree, and then save that out as what's called a WAD file. And the WAD file just stood for where's all the data. And it was just the data. There's inside of a WAD file are all the little pieces of the map that all the pieces of data that comprise the idea of a map. That the engine can load and use to make the map, the visibility parts of it and all that kind of stuff. Um, so that was so the process was on my, say, I think it was on my left. I have my DOS computer, and I'm in Next Step, and I create the level really quick, and I BSP it, and it saves it into a directory that is in a NetWare 3.3 object, which maps to a NetWare file server in our office, which our DOS machines are also connected to. So I just go over to my DOS machine, I copy the level from the Z drive where the NetWare map was, and I just copy it into the Doom directory, and I just run Doom. And Doom loads up, and it runs that little level that I just made, and I let it sit there. And then I go over to the next step. I'm looking at the screen. I'm like, yeah, let me add that over there or whatever. And I
Hmm.
go and I modify it on next step, click BSP again, and then I basically get out of DOS, copy it again, just usually up arrow enter because it's just like command, just remembers the command, and then run Doom again with the command line that just loads that level immediately up and runs into it. And there it is. It's new.
Is this process similar to what other studios were using at the time? Because you talk about making 13 games in 1991, and I'm curious if like this kind of very uh, straightforward and quick process of iteration is part of the reason that you were able to be so prolific.
It was partially fast iteration. It was also the fact that we created the concept of an engine, which
Hmm.
basically separated the game code and the engine code from the data of the game, which is everything you see and hear. The levels, the sprites, the audio, the music, the sound effects, the music, special pieces of data. All that stuff is separated out of the engine, so you can make completely different games by replacing all of that stuff and doing some work in the engine code if you wanted to. And later on, we even separated the gameplay code from the engine code and made that scriptable. So we came up with the idea of the engine in 1990, and that was in the very first Commander Keen game. And we licensed an engine in the summer of '91 for the first time. But by that point, we were basically making new games by taking the engine from the previous game and just modifying some of the code inside of it because we have new enemies and we're just doing some new experimentation with game design. But all the data is being made by our artist and me and Tom, creative director, and we're basically creating the whole game outside of the
Yeah.
engine code, and so we could do it very fast because we don't need to interrupt the programmer. We are just doing all this other stuff using that engine,
Yeah.
and so we could just like make games faster, but it was also because at that time we had, in 1990, we had been making games for 10 years each. So we already were experts when we got together. So yeah, we were really fast because we had lots of experience. We created a methodology that was very efficient and fast, um, and we were driven. So we were focused. There were no notifications, no internet. There was no cell phones. It was
I'm
just
sure that
pure,
helped.
right.
Yeah.
It helped so much, and yeah, we knew what we needed to do. We didn't do prototypes. We just came up with the idea and we immediately started making the game.
Hmm.
And we knew how to do it because before we worked together, 10 years of games for us was actually dozens and dozens of games. It wasn't like I made a couple
Sure.
games.
Right.
Like Doom was my 90th game. I made
Wow.
89 games before
Yeah.
Doom. So
Most
I
people don't have that in their career. So
Yeah. Like before even starting in software, I'd made at least 60 games. So, and Tom Hall also made a shitload of games. Like, so,
yeah,
um,
production cycles are a lot longer these days.
oh yeah, there's so much complexity nowadays with four people. Like we started, it's so much easier. Even today with four people, it is simple and you can get a lot done fast, lot done with experienced people. But as it gets bigger and bigger, it's just like the time really expands because of the
Yeah.
complexity of the systems that we're using now.
Yeah, and I think we take engines for granted these days. But it is interesting to hear about, like, kind of in the early days, like, oh, we can separate these two, types of complexity and work on them separately, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I know that you're short on time, but I wanted to first leave it open for you to plug what you've got coming up. I know that you've got Sigil 2 coming up, and also I believe you're doing a live stream close to the 30th anniversary. So if you want to
On
talk about those two things.
Yeah, so December 10th is the 30th anniversary. That is the day that people will be able to just download for free Sigil 2. That'll have the MIDI music in it. And if people want to hear the really awesome the soundtrack that plays in there, like actual MP3s, it's like €6 on the same site. And if you want a big box, you go to our site and buy one of the boxes. Right now, there's only one left because the other two were collectors and they sold out like within a minute. But the shotgun shell USB poster, all that kind of stuff is in it. The cover art is nuts. The music is so good, and I think the whole experience is just like amped up. The original Sigil just amped up. Id Software is publishing it that day, so December 10th. It will be on all the consoles, Switch and Xbox and stuff. And I'm doing a live stream talk with John Carmack on Twitch, where we are talking together with David Craddock, who is a FPS historian, and we're just talking about Doom and possibly its development, its effect on the world, and where it's at now, and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be really, really fun.
And I believe that's on December 10th as well, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
that's all that day.
8 p.m. GMT, which I think is morning to noon in the United States. I'm not going to try to do all the time conversions, but we'll look for you on Twitch, and excited about the 30th anniversary of Doom.
Thanks. Same here.
John Romero, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on. Honestly, it's an honor to talk to you. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being very interested in Doom-Ed in the next step.
Hey, we love all that kind of stuff. We get into the weeds.
Nice. Love it.
All right. Thank you, John. We'll take care and have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you for listening to the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment's official podcast. If you've got any thoughts, questions, corrections, or general museum ideas, shoot us an email at info@themade.org. Our fully interactive museum is located at 921 Washington Street in beautiful downtown Oakland. Hours are noon to 7 Wednesdays and Thursdays, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, and 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Sundays. Thank you especially to our donors and Patreon supporters who help keep The Made afloat. Until next time, I'm Jed. We'll see you in a few weeks.